Hello, everyone, and welcome to the best hour on YouTube. Thanks for joining us on this Sunday. My name is Joey Tabor. I'll be presenting tonight, and today I am joined by three lovely panelists. I hope everyone's doing better after yesterday's boring. Well, I guess we're kind of used to it now. Just regular game under Louis Van Gaal. So we're going to talk about all that. Lots of good stuff tonight. So I don't see any reason why we shouldn't jump right into it. Alex, I'm going to ask you first. There's a little rumor going around. Louis Van Gaal will be sacked or walked tomorrow. Is there anything in that rumor, or is it just a rumor?
I think it has to just be a rumour. I think after that December run, how he didn't get sacked, and then I thought after yesterday's game that he would have been sacked, but now it just seems that he's going to be, whether we like it or not, he's going to be here till at least the summer. But I personally don't see the point in keeping him until the summer because I understand that maybe Jose Mourinho doesn't want to take over midway through a season because he might not be able to save it, and then it brings bad morale going into the next season. But I'd just give it to Giggs till the end of the season rather than just keep on with Van Gaal because it's just going to keep burying the morale. But I think it's just rumours, but I don't see why we're sticking with him because we're not getting better, we're only getting worse.
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned that yesterday that if they didn't sack him in December, what's a loss at Sunderland? What's that going to do for it? And if you look at our record against the relegation teams and even the bottom half of the table, it's just absolutely abysmal. Zara, do you feel the same way? Do you think there's nothing in the rumor, and if they were going to sack him, they would have done it in December?
Well, I think, to be honest, what they've done is they've just saved the money from January transfer window to just completely leave it to the point where we'll just use the buyout clause to get Van Gaal out. I honestly think that's what's going to happen tomorrow. And if that happens, I think good and well. But if they're saying if Mourinho comes, he's not going to make an impact. But if he doesn't make an impact, then I just think it gives them longer to have that transition period to be the best following the next season because we need a fresh start. We're not just going to have a fresh start now midway.
No, you're right. You don't want to sack him in the middle of the season, but I think given what's transpired and what the results aren't getting better. The performances are. I mean, they were getting better against obviously lesser opposition. But Jordy, I'm gonna come to you. Do you see the same sentiment that if Giggs was given the job now, we could see what he can do? Either he's successful, gets into the top four, or he bombs out and he has to, he doesn't get the job in the summer. Do you think now is the time to give it to Giggs?
Personally, I think it'd be a massive risk if we gave it to Giggs even now. I don't want to see his name sullied because I think if he struggles now, because he can't make his own signings, he can't bring anyone else in. If he starts to struggle now and United bomb out and don't get fourth, he's going to get as much blame as Louis Van Gaal because he's been his number two all season. A lot of the blame is also being put at Giggs' door right now because simply he is Van Gaal's number two. He hasn't stood up. He hasn't been accounted for. He hasn't been there this season shouting, apart from maybe one match where he got off of his seat. Giggs is as much to blame for this season as Van Gaal. If he really wanted to make a change and he really wanted to show his managerial credentials, he needed to speak up, and he hasn't done that.
Yeah, I was actually talking to an Arsenal friend of mine about it, and I said Giggs needs to distance himself as a friend and be more like a manager. Do you share that same sentiment, Alex? Do you think Giggs should be taking part of this blame for not standing up and not, being maybe more authoritative? Or there was a good article I read about, maybe this is Giggs. Giggs makes more decisions than we think, and Van Gaal maybe listens to him too much.
I'm not sure because I think Van Gaal's been well known for this style of play, so I don't think Giggs has too much say so. But you have to kind of worry when Giggs is seen over two of the least successful Man United managers. I know we haven't had that many since Fergie, but this has been in the last 30 years the worst 3 seasons we've had, it seems, and especially when you look at the amount of money spent under Van Gaal and then with Moyes obviously taking over a title-winning squad. Or I know we've had this debate before. I think Fergie left a terrible squad, but Mark seems to think the opposite. But I think Giggs should shoulder the blame, but I think he's sitting there expecting to get the United job, and I don't think you could walk into like it's completely different with how Real Madrid gave it to Zidane, because number one, Zidane was managing their B team and everything, but number two, Real Madrid have like world class players in every single position, and we only have, in my opinion, it might be controversial, I think when everyone's fit, De Gea, Luke Shaw, and Martial are the only three players that are capable at the level that Manchester United should be. And like, it's harsh but true. Obviously, Rooney back in his day was, and Mata at Chelsea was, but I don't think Man United really suits having a number 10 like Mata with the style of play that we want to go for.
I completely agree with that. I think that when you're talking about that top drawer quality, De Gea, Shaw, and Martial. That's not to say, like you said, Rooney wasn't world class at one point, and Mata, and even Schweinsteiger. But there's also a lot of players that have been brought in that aren't pulling their weight, and they're kind of not fulfilling their potential. And I think part of that's on them, and I think a lot of that's on the manager, because the manager is, part of his job is to get the best out of players, and he just quite simply hasn't done that. And that's going to lead into the next question, Zara. Question I probably never thought I would ever ask or think about or have a debate about. Is Louis van Gaal, is this tenure worse than David Moyes? Should we have just stuck it out with Moyes? Would that have been a better situation, given Moyes the money that Van Gaal has had? I mean, Moyes did identify Ander Herrera and Luke Shaw. Those were his signings, which have been good signings. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I completely agree with you on that one. To be honest, when you're in this stage in the season when it's this bad, it just makes you reflect on what Moyes was like. To be honest, Moyes didn't have a huge ego like what Van Gaal has, and that's what sort of brought everyone down to earth about it. And when he was sacked, yeah, he was gutted, but he understood completely. I mean, now it's all in the paper saying that Moyes said he was trying to even talk to Fabregas to get him to come to United, and that's what was in the papers today. Completely mad. But the thing is, Moyes has proven, like you said, brought in Herrera and Shaw. Van Gaal's brought in, Memphis. And to be honest, I think Memphis is completely overrated. I don't think he's done anything for us. I think he's got that much of a huge ego, he's not going to pull through. And that's just my opinion. So
we're gonna talk about Memphis later.
Yeah. Would you rather have Moyes or Van Gaal?
I mean, look, if we were going back to the time when we hired Van Gaal, I was a big advocate for signing Van Gaal, because even though it's been so bad, he did get rid of a lot of players. Yeah. And going forward, it's never as bad as it looks. I know that sounds crazy, and there is a nice foundation at this club that whether or not you want to think he left or not, Van Gaal is going to leave a good foundation going forward. It's not as bad as I think when Moyes left. So, I mean, there were entertaining games under Moyes, but under Van Gaal, we've only played good football for like 1 month out of his whole tenure. So, I mean, I'd rather just have neither. And I like what you said about Moyes' ego wasn't as big as Van Gaal, and some people wanted that big ego. They wanted that little bit of, a chip on your shoulder. And now they got too much. I think we just need to find that happy medium between Moyes and Van Gaal in terms of an ego, because you do have to have a bit of swagger to be the Manchester United manager. I mean, Fergie, the way he conducted himself, the way he owned press conferences, that when he stood on that touchline, he owned that touchline. Refs were afraid, when it came to extra time. But we are going to talk about Memphis, because there's some controversial things going on with him and his birthday and his celebrations and what he drives. And I think, I don't think he's overrated, but I think he's in a bad spot right now. And I think he needs to, get his head down and get to work and listen to Giggs and other players who might be able to help him in terms of advice. Gerardi, I want to ask you the same question. Is LVG worse than Moyes?
First of all, Joey, I gotta say, a happy medium between LVG and Moyes. Is there such a thing? I mean, seriously, if you took Moyes and LVG and blended them together, what the hell are you gonna get? My God, seriously, dude. But is LVG worse than Moyes? In terms of his tenure, yeah, you gotta say he has. Moyes didn't have the money that LVG had to spend. LVG's had more time, and we've gone backwards. If you listen to any of the pundits, LVG has completely sunk this club down. We got fourth last season. Where are we now? We're fighting for fourth again, but we're nowhere near. Last season we were in and around fourth, and we kind of stayed up there most of the season. We're now looking behind ourselves at West Ham and Southampton. They're 1 point behind us in the table. You've got to say, based on what's happening, and seeing as the league is capitulating this year with the top four just losing games and no one can win the league, this was our season to take it, and he hasn't done that. We have gone backwards under Louis van Gaal. So for me, he is probably, yes, shading it worse than Moyes.
You know, I really like how you brought that up, and that transitions beautifully when we're talking about, you know, how you know, the league has been pretty bad this year, in my opinion. You know, Chelsea aren't doing well. You know, nobody other than Leicester, and they got screwed today, has really, you know, taken the title race by the grips. You know, Tottenham are winning games now, but I wonder if in the summer, if they would have known how bad Chelsea was and the potential that they probably could have won the league if they made one or two more quality signings, you know, would they have gone out and splashed the cash? You know, and that transitions into the next question, which is about Ed Woodward. Alex, is he mainly to be blamed at this? You know, Louis van Gaal apparently wanted to walk at Christmas. A new manager possibly could have came in at that time and salvaged the top four because, like Girardi said, you know, top four is everything. Like, if we don't get in the top four, we have to win the Europa League, which is very, very tough to do. So how much blame does Ed Woodward take? Because the best we've done in 3 years under Woodward is fourth. And not to mention, look, he's fantastic signing players off the pitch, but, you know, he's had to overpay for certain players. I know the first year we weren't in the Champions League, but the amount of money he splashes out that where maybe he shouldn't be.
Well, if those rumours were true about that how he should have been sacked, and it's because it's Ed Woodward's guy, that's the thing I don't understand, because Ed Woodward seems to be a big like really strongly in favour of the Galactico system that Real Madrid set up, like wanting to always bring in the big names and all this, which really makes me wonder why he wouldn't want to then bring in the biggest name in management along with Pep Guardiola. Jose Mourinho is up there. They're probably like neck and neck. So he is like a Galactico signing in terms of manager. So when he becomes available, it's like, to make a like parallel to Liverpool, sorry for that, it's like Rodgers wasn't really doing bad enough at the time to be sacked, but they saw an opening that Klopp was available, and they're like, oh shit, we have to act now to get him in, to get the man that we want. So it's the same thing like now, except, well, to a lesser extent, because Van Gaal is actually proving to be relegation form. Is like, I saw the stats the other day of our form against the bottom 6 teams, and it's just absolutely hideous. And then Sunderland, we've only scored one more goal in the league than Sunderland, which is absolutely unforgivable. But one of our main problems that I think, and we've harped on and on about it at the start of the season, was how LVG keeps playing Martial out on the wing. Which, yes, Martial is our best winger, but the problem is he's our best striker.
He's probably our best defender. He's probably our best midfielder, our best manager.
Martial is God, basically. But the problem is, like Rooney, he has been in a bit of good form in 2016, but his best position is behind the striker anyway. And yes, that does maybe make us lose matter in his creativity, but you have to get to use Van Gaal's thing, the balance of the team. And like, I think we would be bad. The problem is we have no wingers is the main problem. But if we just manage to like slide and give Memphis a run of games, give Januzaj a run of games, give Lingard. But another thing I was thinking of, I know hindsight's 2020, and they're not the greatest of players. But if they would have, injuries aside, if they would have stayed fit, we should have just really just played Valencia and Young as our wingers with Rooney at 10 and Martial up front, because, like I said, they're not the most talented of players, but they've won the league, both of them. Like, we've won the league with them playing on the wing, so they're experienced and they're used to the Premier League. So that's just a thought that came up today.
Look, it's a good option, and I think you always want to have options and depth. And you know, we heard him in the summer talking about, I want 2 players for every position. What happened to that? You know, more or less, did Ed Woodward fail him in the summer and just not bring in the targets he wanted? Obviously, you're going to want those world-class players. Who doesn't want them? But they're very rarely come up for sale. And when they do, you know, you can't dick around on the price. You have to throw an offer that they can't refuse that's worth it. You know, you want to be the biggest club in the world and you want to spend all this money like Real Madrid, well, you actually have to do that when push comes to shove. So same questions are, how much blame goes on Ed Woodward for you? Do you see a situation where maybe he did fail him in the summer and LVG's trying to just cover him and say, yeah, I'm happy with the squad?
Yeah, I think Ed Woodward's... I think 50-50 Ed Woodward, Van Gaal. That's what I think. I think mainly because, well, the players that they let go, I think they needed another chance, like Hernandez. I truly believe Hernandez was the worst player that they should have let go. I think the reason that he was in that slump Sorry if it's controversial. If it went in the slump, I just think it's because he needed more game time. I think if he had more game time, then he would have shone. But Van Gaal just didn't have any faith in him from the beginning, and that must have been from the first time he stepped foot in the dressing room.
I think it's a little bit of lack of game time. I also think it's the system. I think, Chicharito's a player that plays on the shoulder of the last defender, and we've seen under Van Gaal, it's a slow build-up. When he doesn't, when we're not playing counterattack and just going, I'm trying to think of the goal I'm thinking of. I think it was against Stoke, that beautiful counterattacking goal. Hernandez is completely useless. And he didn't, he played okay under Moyes, but he was super sub, and that wasn't it. I think really what happened is Hernandez just found the perfect situation, the perfect team around him, and the perfect league. And I think that is, more or less that just fits him. And I think had he stayed, I don't know if he would have banged in the goals like he was for any manager. You just never know. I mean, we can't do ifs and buts. But there are some players I would have liked to see stay. But that wasn't the case. I would have liked to see him throw an arm around Di Maria and say, I know you don't like the area, your house got burgled in, anything we can do. But that's not the type of manager Van Gaal is. He's not going to sit there and put his arm around him. Girardi, same question with you, Ed Woodward. Ed Woodward's going to be, he under 3 years, the best we finished is 4th. And he's beautiful, wonderful off the pitch. He makes lots of money. But on the field, it hasn't been that good. Actually, it's been terrible.
Absolutely fantastic from Ed Woodward. I mean, if you have a masterclass in how to manage Arsenal for 4th place, brilliant. Ed Woodward would fit straight in at Arsenal right now. He has got the model for that. But it has been a catalogue of errors when you look at it on the face of it. All the money he's got, he's got all these sponsorship deals, but he is not a football brain. He is not David Gill. When Sir Alex Ferguson retired, I think one of the biggest losses the club has ever suffered was the loss of David Gill. That man built up the club with Sir Alex Ferguson into the juggernaut it was. Woodward actually helped the Glazers take over. He was actually instrumental in the Glazers coming in and leeching money out of the club, which is how he got to the position he's in anyway. He shouldn't be anywhere near the top of the club. He is a businessman, not a football man. And under, Ed Woodward, the club is only going to slip backwards, and we're going to end up like Liverpool in the 1990s, scrapping for 7th place, hoping maybe we might get a League Cup every now and again. I mean, seriously, Joey, it's Valentine's Day. Do you have any love for Ed Woodward? Do you have any love for Van Gaal? Do any of you have any love for anyone right now?
Yeah, my girlfriend's downstairs. But but look, I think...
Then why are you upstairs, dude? If she's downstairs, why are you on Skype? Seriously.
It's been a weekend. Anyway, keeping on that topic, I am very patient. I'm a very patient person. I was very patient under Moyes, and it just never came. I was patient under Van Gaal, and you get battered on Twitter and things like that, and you stick to them because you want them to succeed. I think if he turned around, got us a top 4 finish, and next year he won us league, no one would, I'd forget everything that happened. But it's not going to happen. This isn't a fairy tale. This isn't a Disney movie. I just don't see it getting any better. Like I said, his entire time in charge, for 1 month, it was entertaining and exciting. That was it. There's been, players being played out of position, the wrong tactics. I mean, how many 0-0 games in a row? And it's frustrating. So that being said, Alex, I know I don't want anybody to commit suicide listening to me, because I know there is going to be a renaissance at the club. What can we hope for the rest of the season, Alex? Because a couple weeks ago, LVG's sitting there going, well, we could still win the league after a couple of good games against some shit teams. And now it's, well, top 4 looks out of sight. We're going to have to win the Europa League.
I don't even know what to like. This season has been such a roller coaster, just going up and down in form. Like, we thought we'd finally turned the corner, then we went into that Chelsea game, and people say, we played them off the pitch. I personally think Chelsea had the better chances, but we still gave them a game at least. Like, they didn't batter us or anything. Then we go into that Sunderland game, And 2-1 is probably a very flattering result to us, because it could have been a lot more than 2-1 if you looked at their chances. And just imagine if they would have like put 5 past us or something, how just embarrassing it is. And it's like we did kind of get a get out of jail free card with Spurs beating City today. But then just imagine if we'd have beaten Sunderland yesterday and then Spurs beat City, we'd be 3 points off City, and it would have just been the most amazing feeling ever. Unless we actually kept Van Gaal because of it. But if we managed to scrape top 4 and then City come 5th, and with Pep Guardiola coming into Europa League football, it would have just been the greatest moment ever. I'd have loved it. But in terms of hopes for the season, I don't know. We've got to a stage that I'm not even kidding. I'm actually worried about going away to Shrewsbury, and they're like bottom of League One. And it's like, that is how bad it's become, because I really don't, like, people might laugh at that, but we played Sheffield United, who are in the same league, at home, and it took us till the 90th minute and a penalty to beat them at Old Trafford. So I probably think that we'll actually lose to Shrewsbury from like a set piece or something, because let's be fair, they're going to put 10 men behind the ball and we're not going to break them down. So, because you have to also bear in mind that that's their cup final. So, and in terms of the Europa League, you have the likes of Dortmund in there. So if we go up against Dortmund, if Sunderland are beating us, you don't want to see what Aubameyang's going to do to us.
Yeah, that's very true. And I think, we have to get through something like 4 rounds just to get to the final. And I'm expecting us to beat them, though. The team, Midtjylland, however you pronounce it, I'm expecting to go into the next round. And I think with United, every game I've watched, you just don't know what you're going to get. Because one week, they look all right, half decent. Chelsea game, they should have probably won that game, but they didn't. And then they come out against Sunderland, and that second half yesterday was absolutely dire. I mean, I was almost falling asleep. But it is what it is. Zara, what are your expectations for the rest of the season? This is also, we don't know what's going to happen. He could go and lose the next 3, get sacked. But what are your expectations for the rest of the season? Where do you see us finishing, and do you see him keeping his job at least till the summer?
I think he'll go. I think he'll go probably tomorrow. That's what I think. Mainly because all the fans have seriously lost it. If he doesn't go tomorrow, he'll be gone soon. And if not, then obviously the end of the season. But I'd say with Van Gaal, we'll probably finish, I don't know, maybe 6th. And that's like lucky, because we're no way near going to get top 4. No way near. Like, that's in a dreamland we're ever going to reach top 4. And that's just my opinion.
No, I agree, and it is dreamland to think that, and I think that I don't think those teams are that good to be in the top 4. Maybe Tottenham, because they play, they have a good defense. They have the Harry Kane banging in goals. But I mean, if we're miles off the top 4, that's just depressing. Drawdy, does it get to a point where Jose Mourinho's like, well, I want to if he is the next manager, like all the rumors say, is it come to a point where he rings up his agent and gets on the phone with Woodward, like, look, I'm going to have to come in, fix this mess, get them into the top 4, because I'm not managing in the Europa League next year?
I'll tell you what, Jose Mourinho has to come in with an arsenal right now. He needs to come in guns blazing. He needs to walk in there bringing in world-class players. He needs Bale, he needs Neymar, he needs Messi. Right now, Jose Mourinho needs everything at his disposal to turn this car crash of a season around. And it is a car crash, because everyone has been so piss poor around us, it's effectively made us look better than we've actually been. Had Man City been on top of their game, had Chelsea not had the terrible start they'd had, my God, that has completely made everything out of kilter. Chelsea should be up the top, so already you're in a false league position. Based on everything that's happened so far, I would say really we're probably, in terms of our ability, around about 8th. If you look at where we are, the player who's having a great season, though, is Fellaini. He must be loving it. 5th place for Fellaini. He has reached new heights even for his career. So, there are positives and silver linings of everything. But for me, so far, this season, only Jose Mourinho can rescue it. But it's not going to be his team, and we know Jose doesn't like coming into a situation where players aren't his. Can you see Jose coming in now and managing this squad, this thin squad with Fellaini. I'm going to keep saying it, Fellaini. Can you imagine Jose Mourinho having to manage Fellaini? It's just not going to happen. I think he'd rather wait until the summer, get a load of cash in, make his own squad. So for now, and if it is true, and Zara, said that she thinks LVG is going to go tomorrow. If he does go tomorrow, Giggs is the only option right now.
Yeah, he is. Are you confident with that, Jody? I'm going to stick with you on that. Do you think that Giggs could do a better job right now? Probably a monkey in a suit could do a better job, but...
Oh, a nutless monkey could do a better job than LVG right now. You could literally get a monkey out of a factory or a zoo, stick him in LVG's seat, and he would do a better job. Pay him 10 million bananas, I don't care how much it costs, just get that monkey to do something. Because right now, LVG is like... It feels like Forrest Gump trying to go for a box of chocolates. He just can't find the right one, It's not going well for United. Joey, seriously, do you think that Giggs could do a good job until the end of the season?
I'll stick to my thing where he has to become more of a manager and less of a friend to the players. I think he's got the experience. He knows the United way. I think tactically he could do a job. Honestly, I think what you'll get with Giggs is consistency. He'll at least consistently play one way for the rest of the season, or instead of changing it up. He will attack.
Hold on. LVG has been playing one way for what?
Oh yeah, consistently bad. Well, in terms of attacking and with a formation and playing players in the right position, I think part of the thing is just playing square. Square pegs and round holes. I was listening to the commentator and he said Donald Love was more of a left back. If that's the case, then you're playing with, a left back at center back, a left back at right back. It's a nightmare. Fellaini isn't a central midfielder. He's more of a number 10 for me. Memphis is on the bench doing whatever, playing in his next car. It's just a calamity, and I do think Giggs can do better. But this is a win-win situation for us because either Giggs comes in, bombs it, and he's not the man to take over in the summer, or he does fantastic and they give him some money to spend. But we'll have to wait and see.
Two seconds. What about Gary Neville? There's a lot of people saying Gary Neville. I know he's had a terrible time, but no one's mentioned Gary Neville.
I think I would more like to see him on the if Giggs did get the job, I want Gary Neville on the staff as well as Scholes, even Nicky Butt. But
we've said it on the show before, and it's so true. And I put a tweet out, and people were like, "Oh my God, how could you say that?" Yada yada yada. I said that I don't care how many games he loses in Spain, I'd have Gary Neville over Louis van Gaal any day, and I still stick by it. I'd have Gary Neville over Ryan Giggs. He went to a country with a team that would like spam losing anyway. It's not like they were in good form. To a country he doesn't know the language, so he's having to learn the language. He doesn't know the league. It would be completely different. I think he would actually have done a pretty good job in the Premier League for a team, but with United or something, if he was to take over, if you were to give it to an inexperienced person out of the class of 92, which seems to be the fashionable thing, and if you were going to take out the greatest member of class of 92, David Beckham, the true king, that if he wasn't going to be an option, then I'd give it to Gary Neville any day.
But the issue is, I think, is that we don't need a 50-50 chance. We need a promise. We've took too many risks with Moyes and Van Gaal. We need a promise, and that's exactly what we need to do. I think Mourinho was the promise.
Yeah. Mourinho is who it has to be. But then the one thing is that with Mourinho is that you are guaranteed success. And what pisses me off is people are like, oh, you only get Mourinho for 3 years or whatever. But Pep Guardiola only stays for 3 years as well. So people are such hypocrites.
Yeah, and I think, looking back at it, LVG was supposed to be a sure thing almost. He had to prove. The reason that, he was brought in, it was the CV coming off of a great World Cup. So I think, honestly, if you would have gone back when he got the job and told people, yeah, he's going to fail miserably, a lot of people probably would have been surprised because they expected him to straighten the ship out and play attacking football, and it just didn't happen. So, one of his decisions, was to make Rooney the captain. Do you think Rooney has been a good enough captain for the club?
Definitely not this season. In that game yesterday, what did you say? Love, on his debut, went on that pitch. Then Rooney overkicked a shot. What did Love do? Start going absolutely mental at him. That's what he needed. Why would you have to go mental at Rooney for someone who's a captain, who's meant to be their leader, and who looks lost on that pitch? he does this season. I just think he looks lost. He needs to get that rhythm back. Otherwise, he's just a risk as well as every single other player on that pitch.
Honestly, I just think that, we don't see what happens behind closed doors, but I just don't know if he's a leader. I mean, some people are born with it. Some people, acquire it. Some people lead by example. And I'm just not sure. I think a lot of him, before, even last season, we used to see him just yelling at players. Maybe he's not yelling at them, but he's trying to get them going, But I don't know. Drawdy, what do you think about it? Has Rooney been a good enough captain for you? And he's almost certainly not going to be the captain if Mourinho comes in.
Rooney should have never been captain in the first place. He's not a captain.
Can I just quickly butt in just 2 seconds? And when you say
oh my God, is LVT being sacked?
Mourinho would definitely not make Rooney captain. Mourinho is like Rooney's absolute biggest fan and tried to sign him at Chelsea and tried to sign him at Real Madrid. So if anything, he'd give Rooney a new contract and make him captain for the next 10 years.
All right, that's it. Jose can't come in yet.
Sorry, Jose, continue.
That's okay.
Alex, after Drawdy, I want to get some of the viewers' thoughts on that. Has Rooney been a good enough captain? That is the question for the viewers.
Oh, wow. I mean, first of all, Alex, I thought you were going to say LVG was sacked, so you got my hopes up. So damn you on that one, man. I thought it was seriously important. But Rooney should have never been made captain in the first place. He plays better on the edge. Ever since he was given the captaincy, he's lost that edge. He's not that player. He's not going to be the same again. He's not a leader on the pitch. He is not Roy Keane. He's not even Peter Schmeichel when he was captain for a bit. Rooney doesn't shout at anyone. He doesn't command any presence. Even when he's playing for England, he doesn't command any presence anymore. Unfortunately for Rooney, he is that kind of player that when he gets to 30, he will go downhill very, very quickly. And Jose Mourinho will sniff that out, and he will ship him out of the club quicker than anything. Everyone thinks he loves Wayne Rooney. One thing Jose Mourinho is not is sentimental. Look how quickly he dropped John Terry. Do you think he's going to stick with Wayne Rooney? No. Jose will ship him out quicker than you can think of anything. So, no, he shouldn't be captain, and if Jose comes in, he won't be.
If anybody's more ruthless than Van Gaal, we saw the way Van Gaal was getting rid of players left, right, and center. It's Jose Mourinho. But 9 times out of 10, Jose Mourinho knows that those players aren't going to fit his system or they're just done for. So I do trust Jose Mourinho's judgment, and I would love to see him almost take over the transfers at United because I think he gets things done. How many times have we seen? Remember Willian? I think Liverpool or Spurs were interested in him, about to sign him. Here comes Mourinho. Nope, denied. So, Alex, what are the viewers saying about Rooney?
Like just to add on what Jorty just said quickly with the sentimentality of everything, he got rid of Ashley Cole, Czech, although he didn't want to get rid of Czech, and Lampard as well, and Tottenham. But anyway, Jens Robert Helland said Rooney is probably a decent captain. Don't really see who else we could have used as a captain, which is a fair point. Tyler Mitchell said, of course not even being a good enough player this season, which is another fair point. Rooney is there as a prop because he's British and has history, United man. Yeah, that is it. I think he has been given a little bit of the benefit of the doubt because he's so close to the goal scoring record as well. And then Sean Logue said Rooney was losing his edge long before he was made captain. Hopefully one of the Chinese clubs will come in and pay silly money for him, and then we can play Martial up front. Yeah, I just don't see how he just doesn't want to use Martial as a striker. It just seems absolutely absurd because Rooney has been in good form, but Rooney said in an interview the other day that he admits that his legs are gone, but he's quicker in the head. But if his legs are gone and he's quicker in the head, he should just play behind Martial. But the problem is we don't have any wings.
Or even further.
If you're not having Rooney as captain, then who would you have as captain? Because you've got the issue that every player is dire.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Sorry, I can hear myself. It's loud. Okay, cool. Yeah, that first one, when they said who else is going to be captain, and Zara just said it, is that not a huge problem around this club that we can't even think of someone who's good enough to be captain and lead this team? Zara, is there a major hole in the leadership department? Players like Evra, Ferdinand, Vidic left. Big characters. Steve White always says it. Huge characters in the dressing room that you need. You look at the top 14. And they might have their fans will know their players better, but I don't see anyone like a Ferdinand or an Evra in the locker room for those clubs. And I think that's so underrated, the experience that they bring.
Well, I've just seen like Ryan Stubbs, I think he is on the chat. He said Chris Small, and I completely agree. I think he's got potential, mass potential. The rest of them don't have any drive in them. That I don't think there could be that strong person in that dressing room. Whereas Smalling does have that potential, and he could go through the club for years if he's given that chance.
Yeah, I agree. I think that he's been phenomenal this year. Even he hasn't had too many bad games. But I think we got to get him a partner in the summer. I think that's got to be one of the main transfer targets. Finding Chris Smalling a partner, and really, the only reason we have such a good defense is because we hold on to the ball and we're boring. When we tried to attack a few times, especially in the Champions League, we got exposed. So I can't wait till Shaw is back and Darmian and Smalling, and I'm really looking forward to the summer and the transfer window. Drawdy, is there anybody else that you could give a good shout to be captain? Maybe Schweinsteiger?
Well, Kevin Ashford on the comments section has just said Fellaini for captain, so Kevin, you're sacked from the show. But I think what we want to say is I kind of think Chris Smalling, but that's from the first half of the season. If you look at the squad, I mean, everyone says Schweinsteiger should be captain, but I don't think he's been there at the club long enough, and I don't think he's entrenched enough in the club's tradition to be that captain. And I don't think he's actually playing that well at the moment. He's not even really playing in the team so much, if you look at it on the face of things. At the moment, the player who is consistently performing, apart from Martial is too young, is David De Gea. I'd almost want to be inclined to say give the captaincy to De Gea and lead from the back, a bit like Schmeichel did just after... back in '99. I mean, it's difficult. We don't have a lot of leaders. You look through the team right now. Where is the experience? Where is the experience right now? We've got rid of so many players. Actually, talking about all the dead wood that's been got rid of by the club, we are left with not many. We are struggling right now for a leader, and that's what we could do within the summer. If we're going to invest in someone, we need someone with that serious leadership quality, because Rooney's not going to deliver it, and no one else is in the squad.
And see, like with De Gea though as well, you've got to think of you give him the chance to be captain, but he'll go to Madrid ASAP as soon as he can to get out of this mess that United are in. So then you're in the same place once again once De Gea's gone.
I'm hoping that if Mourinho does come in, he can convince De Gea to stay. I think he can, because I think, like Alex was saying, Mourinho guarantees trophies. And if the thing that's unfortunate with De Gea is it's just he is Spanish, he wants to play for his national team, and I understand all that, because I really wish he was just greedy and wanted more money, because then we could pay him. So I just saw this interesting stat, Alex. Of the 15 goals we've conceded in the second half of games, 8 of them have come in the last 10 minutes. It's pretty shocking, isn't it?
It is shocking, but then I think I heard it yesterday as well, and it's not really surprising. We just seem to switch off and crumble. But what annoys me as well is that we seem to always need to concede. Like in that goal when Sunderland scored as well, then we suddenly started to attack. And why does it take? And it's happening in so many games. Why does it take the team scoring and us going behind for us to actually start attacking? We should be like that all the time. But I think it's what's been people have been talking about so many times this season is that when we start a game, we have Louis van Gaal's rigid system in place, blah, blah, blah. And then as soon as we go behind, we have to throw that all out the window and just basically try to attack, because obviously Van Gaal never wants to attack because he wants to play so safe. But
yeah, it's just, it's frustrating. We're supposed to be the team that scores goals late, not get scored on late. Another headline from something I read, Zara, was that maybe Ander Herrera should have been subbed on instead of Memphis. I heard your thoughts on Memphis earlier, so I have a feeling you're going to agree with me. Maybe he could have pushed Mata out wide to the right and got Herrera in there to play those balls in behind and link up better with Martial and Mata.
Yeah, well, I think Herrera should be on the pitch. I don't think he should be on the bench as much. I just don't agree with that. Like I've said before, Memphis, I just don't think he is that ready at the moment. Maybe he will be ready. Maybe he will be, but I just don't think now. I mean, you send, for instance, Wilson wasn't proven, but Wilson was sent out on loan. But he did have a chance at some games, and he was great in those games. fair enough, there's some games that are a bit iffy, but he shows some potential. Whereas Memphis, he'll get something wrong, and you just see it in his face. He gives up, and we can't have people that just give up in the game. We need people who's going to be consistently for the whole time they're on that pitch, not someone who's a part-time player.
Yeah, I think my expectations weren't really big on Memphis. I thought maybe 10 to 15 goals total in all competition, get used to the league. But I think he will come good. I really do. I think under new management, with a fresh start, I think that's what he needs is just a fresh start under new management. And we might be able to see the Memphis that we bought, the one that was brilliant at PSV. Memphis, Herrera, players like Andres Pereira can't even get a game, Drawdy. What does the future hold for some of these players, these fringe players like that? James Wilson's one of them. Paddy McNair. What's the future looking like? Especially are they going to want to go elsewhere? I don't think they're going to want to stay another year under LVG. I mean, that's just unthinkable.
Yeah, but you say they're going to stay another year under LVG. The rumor is he's going to be gone tomorrow, in which case the landscape changes. Well, that's if you believe the rumors which are coming out. But Pereira, I think, is probably the biggest crime of the season. He is seriously, seriously talented, probably more so than Memphis. And he is not getting the game time, and he is not getting the opportunities that he deserves. Wilson, Wilson's a bit of a conundrum. I'm not convinced yet he is that, really top-class striker, which everyone says he's going to be. He needs to prove it a bit more, a bit like Harry Kane did back in the Championship a few seasons ago. Memphis, though, to me, he's probably the biggest flop of the last 5 years. He really I'm sorry, Alex. Yes. And that's purely to see
about Memphis after Jolty.
Oh well, seriously, I'll have a conversation with you about it. Don't worry. It probably is the biggest flop I have seen in the last 5 years. For all the hype that has surrounded Memphis, what has he done? I'm sorry, he waltzes onto the pitch, thinks he's the big I am, has no final delivery, has all the tricks, doesn't go anywhere. I'm sorry, but I don't have this Memphis loving that everyone else seems to have. He's seriously disappointing. What have you seen him do in the last couple of matches? His attitude absolutely sucks.
Yeah, it's hard for him too because he comes onto the pitch, 10 minutes left. Yesterday, give or take, I think he had about 20 to 30 minutes. And obviously, I think people see the way he acts and they take it for what it is. I think I'm more on Alex's side. I'm going to let Alex. We're not going to wait till after. I want to hear what Alex has to say about Memphis because I want to talk to you about. He celebrated his birthday yesterday and he went out in his his home country, and there was this stupid headline from the evening news that maybe he should be called the Pie until he proves something. I just think the level of criticism thrown at him is a little bit unfair, and I feel like he's almost been made to be a scapegoat.
I was just defending another player, Di Maria, that people were saying was a flop, but it's the same problem. But you can link the problems with Di Maria that you can link with basically every single attacking player we've had under Van Gaal, is that he just drills the creativity out of them. And Di Maria wasn't a flop because before Di Maria got his injury and Van Gaal did all that, he was probably the best player in the league. What did he have, 3 goals, 4 assists in his first 5-6 games? And then we had that Leicester game where we probably played the best attacking football we've ever played under Van Gaal, and what was it, 3-1 at half time, and then in the second half we still carried on attacking, and then we shipped 4 goals in one half, and then that is when Van Gaal suddenly put on the brakes, and then we saw a whole new different team. But in terms of Memphis, I always say this, I'm like, he's 22 or just turned 22, come to a brand new league. The same people that are saying, oh, Memphis is a flop because he plays bad in these games. He's shown glimpses of brilliance in some games, and you know who else showed glimpses of brilliance in other games and then made huge mistakes, and everyone was calling to get out of the club and sign a new player. That person was a certain David De Gea, who is now comfortably our best player. So people were doing that to De Gea all the time. The thing that I agree with is what Jorty said, is that his attitude does seem a bit shit, and like what Zara said, when he loses the ball, he does seem to just kind of switch off. But that can come with coaching. That's That's just attitude. You can get someone to have a good attitude. It's not a
I
guarantee.
don't know, Mario Balotelli's attitude.
Well, no,
Seriously,
even a better example of attitude is, I was even just reading about it today, but I've heard about it before. They said the best player, including Ryan Giggs, including David Beckham, including Paul Scholes, who Fergie ever saw in our academy, is Ravel Morrison, who he was an absolutely unreal player, and he was in the same class as Pogba, and every single person rated Ravel Morrison over Pogba, but he just had a shit attitude. So maybe Memphis will have a shit attitude, so he won't live up to his potential, but I'm saying he has the ability. He just has a bad attitude, but it's up to him to turn it around. Like, he turned it around at PSV because he had a bad start at PSV because of his attitude, but then he knuckled down and worked hard. So he did come in, and probably things that don't help him is when he comes in and he's now the number 3 shirt seller in the world after only Messi and Ronaldo. Is probably just going to boost his ego even more than it already is. But I'm saying, people are saying, oh, he's shit, all this. But he has shown, like, the goal against like PSV, the goal against Club Brugge and stuff. You don't score those goals. Even people say, oh, they're pub teams or whatever. You do not score those unreal goals that he scored if you don't have any talent. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I like that one against Bruges where he cut in and just curled one into the top corner. He's got the talent. He's got the potential. And if we were winning and he was still playing bad, it wouldn't, winning makes everything better. And I think in the situation, the way the team's playing, the level of disappointment from the fans, I think it just all builds up. And I think that in the summer, when we get a new manager, or hopefully tomorrow, he'll get a fresh start. I mean, if Van Gaal was sacked tomorrow, I don't even know what I would do. I would be so happy. I think everybody would just be happy and relieved. Twitter would be a very fun place to be tomorrow. So we're going to go into some final thoughts. Czar, your final thoughts on United versus Sunderland, Louis van Gaal, Memphis, anything you want to add that I might have missed?
I say one of the main things is I noticed that when Alex was talking about Memphis and things, a lot of people were saying things on the comments. Like, I think it was Calvin. I can't get the comment now, but it was about saying that basically all in all, Memphis has got glimpses. Like Alex said, he's got glimpses of being the great. But those goals that he got at Club Brugge and everything, they're international. That's not Premier League. He needs to learn how to play in Premier League, and then he'll be able to sort of shine, maybe. You never know. Or he could just be another bad spend. And under Van Gaal, I don't think we have a chance. And if Van Gaal goes tomorrow, great. If he doesn't, then we've got someone to turn things around. But let's just hope we can turn things around under someone that is going to help us get us into top 4, and we can actually be back in Champions League rather than fighting to be the top of Europa, which is where we shouldn't have to fight that battle. We should be playing good football at the moment. We've got players who have just completely lost the morale, and that's just the main point.
Yeah, I mean, when you sack the manager, you get the whole team, the whole club gets a boost. And there is, a few players here that have the potential to fire us back in the top 4. If, like I'm saying, it's not all doom and gloom, especially going in, to the summer. But for the rest of this season, you get a new manager who can inspire you with new ideas, and anything's possible. But I'm saying that these players do have it in their locker to be great attacking players, and we saw it for a month last year because Di Maria wasn't even playing. So you can't even say, oh, well, Di Maria was our best creative player. It's there. The possibilities are there. Drody, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to elaborate on my Memphis thing, by saying he's a flop. I don't think he's a bad player. I think he has got bags of potential. But what I'm getting at, for the money we paid for him and what we should have expected this season, he has been a flop. He's a seriously talented footballer. I've seen what he can do in the Dutch league. He just needs to sort his attitude out. That is number one. The captain thing, Richard Humphreys on the comments box makes an absolutely brilliant comment earlier on, which I wrote down. Is it true that LVG picked the captain of the Titanic? Well, that's probably true, Richard, because right now United is sinking faster than the Titanic, and I thought I'd just share that one with you all. But I think for now, my final thought would be, if LVG does go tomorrow, don't get in Jose Mourinho now. It's the only time you can give Giggs the chance he deserves. because if you get in Mourinho now, that means Giggs will never get a shot, because it'll be 3 years' time, and Giggs ain't going to hang around for 3 years. Let's be honest with that. He's not going to sit there as Mourinho's number 2. So you have to get in Giggs tomorrow, and that's really all I can really say at the moment. I think that sums it up.
I just want to butt in there as well. You did say that Memphis is a flop, but the definition of a flop to me is Falcao. There's always going to be that Falcao. Yeah.
You're really hurting all Alex's man crushes tonight. You're breaking his heart.
I'm sorry for breaking your heart, but Falcao is a flop.
Falcao was a flop.
Just drags everyone down.
Falcao was definitely a flop.
Falcao's worse than a flop. If there's a word worse than a flop and anyone can think of it, Falcao is worse than that.
Falcao.
Yeah,
when you flop worse than flop, you're called a Falcao.
That's it. From now on, Joey, we will now call anyone worse than a flop a Falcao. That's done.
Falcao wasn't a flop. He was a brilliant player that just got ravaged by injuries, the exact same as Fernando Torres. If Falcao would have came into United or any Premier League team before his injury, he would have been the best striker in the Premier League by a mile.
I don't think anyone will disagree with you there. I don't think anybody would disagree with you there. But he did come in. There was we had big expectations, and he didn't fulfill them. But at the same time, some people's expectations are too high. Like I said, I only expected Memphis maybe 10, 15 goals, so he's pretty on par with what I thought he would do. Alex, your final thoughts? And I wanted to add one more thing on Drawdy. I think he's completely right with the Giggs thing, because I don't think there's any expectations. I don't have any expectations for the rest of the season. So give it to Giggsy for the rest of the season.
Yeah, so I was just trying to unmute myself. My final thought is that it wasn't in one of the topics, but I was going to throw it over to you guys, your opinion on this. What is your views? Because seeing as it looks like we're not going to get top 4 this season, would you guys rather us finish 7th again, like we did under Moyes, and avoid Europa League? So if we get Jose Mourinho in, we can go head on. Because it's like you've seen with Leicester this season, you saw with Liverpool when they didn't have Europe, you saw when we didn't have Europe last season. Would you rather finish 7th this year and just try to push for the title and top 4, or hopefully the title if we get Mourinho, or would you rather stick and try to win the Europa League next season with Jose, but then we have more games and obviously the potential for more injuries? Go to Joey first.
Oh yeah, I'm going Europa. I would rather finish 7th.
Really?
The statistics show that if you finish 7th, those teams we forget Tottenham are going to go into the Europa League too. They're going to be distracted by that. So there's still the potential for them to sink out of the top 4. I don't think it'll happen, but yeah, I would rather finish 7th because, like Alex said, the travel. But on the other side of that, Jose could use that to play his young players. So but personally, I'll go 7th.
And Jordy?
7th would be seriously disappointing.
It'd be Moyes-esque.
Moyes-esque, it would be Moyes. It would be Moyes 2.0. I think the problem with 7th is you're setting your bar too low. We're Manchester United. We shouldn't be setting this bar that low anyway. I'm always of the ilk of you finish as high as you can, and if you make it into Europe, then you make the best fist of it you can. I don't ever think you should down your expectations, even if it is based on statistics, yet you're not going to do that well. I just think this season we're going to end up I think we will end up 5th. I think everyone else is just falling away, and it's such a weird league this season. Who knows? We could even finish 4th. We could actually finish 4th, but it's
I don't think we'll finish 4th. No way. I don't think we will.
And why is that?
You can just see all the players. All the players aren't going to just change their mind and go, oh wow, we can actually play football today. They're not just going to magically go and do that. I think even if Mourinho does come into it, that will give them a slight boost, but I don't think it'll give them enough to actually finish 4th.
Well, people say that, and as people say, if Mourinho came in right now, we wouldn't finish 4th. But if he is the right manager for Manchester United and he can get the players to that level, we should finish 4th in theory, because he's that much better a manager than LVG. Because otherwise, it proves that what LVG could not be surpassed anyway, which I think would actually be a sad fact.
Yeah, I agree. I think if Mourinho came in, I think he'd be able to get fourth. Not relatively easily, but I think he would make Old Trafford a fortress. Look at his home record. I think he'd make us more compact defensively, and we'd be hitting teams on the counter with Martial, potentially Memphis, with a little bit of pace out there. So I do think Mourinho could get us fourth. That's why I don't understand it. I don't think we're going to get it under LVG. So I'd rather see us try and get it with Giggs or bring Mourinho in now.
I just think that I saw someone write it on Twitter the other day, and it is actually a good point that if we bring in Jose now and he doesn't turn it around, then like when you look at the stock market or something, then like it will give an initial boost when he comes in, but then it will just drop back down again. Whereas if we bring him in, because remember how much the Glazers think of money, we bring him in the summer, and then it will be like the big boost and everyone like all expectation and stuff. Whereas pretty much everyone just thinks, especially after yesterday, that this season is a write-off. But the fact that we have Europa League is kind of an annoyance, because if we didn't, and then everyone else is in Europe going into this, like 6 points in the grand scheme of things isn't a big margin to make up. What was it in the season that City won the league with the Aguero goal? Weren't they like 8 points behind us?
Yeah.
Like 3 games to play or like 4 games to play. We still have like 13, 14 games to play. Statistically, it's really easy to make up 6 points, especially when you bear in mind that we have to play all of the top 4 still. But it's just how, like Zara said, how we're playing. They're not just going to randomly turn it around now.
Yeah, I think that those teams will lose games, but I know that's going to happen. But it's just us consistently winning games. I just don't see that happening. This was a perfect, like you were saying, such a perfect opportunity. Sunderland, you know what I mean? We should have gained points. We should have at least got a point out of it yesterday. At least, and that's unacceptable.
The only thing I care about now at this point in the season, if the season is truly a write-off, that we beat Arsenal, because if there's one team that I love to beat more than anyone else, it's those utter imbeciles, and especially the way they've acted after today with that Danny Welbeck thing, saying, "Oh, thank you, Manchester United for Danny Welbeck, who like his grand total season for them, he scored like 7 goals or something," and then they're like mocking us, saying it's like more of a coup than us taking RVP when RVP actually won us a league, and Arsenal still won't win the league. So
there's got to be something in that water in London, maybe lead or something.
But yeah, I guess that's all we have time for tonight anyway, guys. So thank you.
Before we go, though, I just want to thank everybody, all the fans that watch. You guys make the United stand. It's Valentine's Day. Go be with your significant other. And if you're not, go watch Deadpool. He'll give you the cuddles. But thank you for watching. Thank you for the whole panel. It's been another fun Sunday. I enjoy these.
Yep. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.